Hey, everybody. So, most marketing does not fail due to messed up creative. It doesn't fail because of the wrong platform. It doesn't usually fail because your budget's too small, though that can be a hindrance, but it's not usually the cause. Most marketing fails because nobody stops to ask the right questions before we start work. And I've seen businesses spend tens of thousands of dollars on ads, really good ads, well produced, on the right platforms, and they basically get nothing back. And the reason has very little to do with the ads. The reason is that nobody ever looked at where the ads were sending people. The website wasn't converting properly. The offer wasn't clear. The audience in the ads was wrong. And by the time anybody figures out what's going on, you've blown through a budget and you feel like it doesn't work. That is what happens when you skip the discovery process. And today I want to talk to you guys about why we don't skip that process and why it should be a red flag if an agency suggests that you do. So this video is for you if you've ever felt like marketing just doesn't work. Like you tried SEO and it didn't do anything. You built a website and it didn't change anything. You hired an agency and you have no idea what you paid for or like where your money actually went. And we hear this a lot. And I want to offer a different explanation for why I think that happens because I don't think it's usually a tactical failure. I think it's that nobody has stepped up first to do the diagnostic work to figure out whether that tactic that was implemented was even the right thing to do or done at the right time. So at Mules Found Digital, we call this discovery, and it's the first thing we typically do on an engagement. Before we touch a website or build an ad or start an SEO campaign, we have to spend time to figure out what's actually broken and what the right fix is, and truly, like what's the order that we need to do the fix in. And while that sounds extremely simple, it's shockingly rare. Most agencies get hired to do a service. We want to be hired for an outcome. And you can't get an outcome if you don't know what's standing between you and the outcome that you're wanting to get. So let me walk you through a little bit about what discovery typically looks like and why that order of operations matters so much and what happens to businesses in marketing when you skip the step. So most agencies get hired for a task. The right agency is hired to solve a problem. Here's how most agency engagements will start. A business owner calls and says, I need SEO, or I need a website, or I want to run Google ads. And the agency goes, that sounds great. Here's our 3-tiered package of the same thing. Let's go ahead and get started on your ads. Well, nobody in that process stops to go, is SEO going to work? What are you trying to accomplish? What is success? What is happening in your business right now or your marketing that's not working? If those questions get skipped, you will typically end up getting exactly what you've asked for and still completely failing, because you might be saying, I need more traffic, when the actual problem is your traffic isn't converting. More traffic to a broken funnel really does not help anybody. And there is a big difference between being a vendor and being a partner. A vendor is brought in to do a task. A partner asks, is this task even the right thing to do? Number two, data doesn't lie, but you have to look at it first. One of the things we discover when we dig into actual numbers, it's so helpful. We're not doing things on assumptions or gut feelings. We're using data. And here's a concrete example of why it matters. Let's say a client comes to us and says, I want to rank number 1 for a specific keyword. That's a very clear goal, right? And it sounds great. But if we pull up the competitive landscape and every site that ranks for that keyword has a domain authority of 40 and the inbound client has an authority of 6, it's not a goal. That's a fantasy. Not because you can't ever get there, but because that's not really where you should be putting resources right now if your goal is to move quickly. If we just said, okay, great, let's kick off your SEO campaign without that check, we're setting our clients up to fail and spend months and months of time and money going after something that isn't even realistic. So the idea is that doing the upfront work catches those problems before we spend dollars in the wrong direction. This happens with paid ads. We've seen businesses running ads on like the wrong platform or spending money on Meta when their audience is looking on Google or vice versa, because nobody sat down and asked what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish. Where you should spend your money is a question that discovery will answer. Typically, order of operations matters a lot more than people realize in marketing. This is one of the things that gets overlooked like the most. Even if you know what the problems are, if you fix them in the wrong order, you are almost always going to make the thing worse. Think about it this way. If your website doesn't convert and you run a bunch of paid ads to it, you won't get results. You're going to get traffic that bounces. And now your data is compromised and you have less budget to use. So you solved problem B before you solved problem A, and now you have problems with A, B, and C. Discovery's job is to give a sequential plan. It tells you not just what to fix, but when. You want to fix the foundation before you build on it. Fix the conversion rate before you send in a bunch of traffic. Fix post-purchase process work before you scale acquisition. There is a logical order to these things, and if you respect that order, you get compounding results. If you ignore the order, you end up in compounding frustration. So let's talk about what discovery looks like in practice. I want to give you a real example so it's not super abstract. We worked with an e-commerce client, and before we started, we did an entire day discovery engagement with them. We're talking an all-day session where we go in and we get into all of it. The site, the ads, the SEO, the post-purchase process, how they're handling their leads, their actual business numbers, like their P&Ls, everything, right? We just dig into it. By the end of the day, we had identified close to 10 severe problems around the marketing of the business. They weren't opinions, they were documented issues backed up by data, and we knew that they were holding this company back. From that, we built a phased plan. Not let's do everything, but here's what we do first, second, and this is why we're doing it in this order. And the client walked away from that meeting with a discovery roadmap, not just like a contract, right? We gave them the path. And here's what happened. Once we started executing against that plan in the right order, cleaning up one thing at a time, they ended up having the biggest quarter in the history of their business. And it's been consistently building and growing on that foundation ever since. That's not coincidence or dumb luck. It's what happens when you do diagnostic work first. So anytime you can spend getting down to what the root issues are, it really helps you create the right path to solve the problem. So you're not out there just doing work, you're doing purposeful work. So what do you want to look for or ask before you hire an agency so you don't have to do it 10 times? Basically, you want to ask them this one question, like, what does onboarding look like? Because if their answer is, we kick off a project and get started, that's really a yellow flag for me. If the answer is, we do a discovery phase to understand your business, your goals, and what's stopping you from getting to those goals, that's really what you want to hear. If they're just eager to get you to sign a contract for SEO or ads, you may be looking at a problem down the road. You really want someone that's going to tell you what the actual problem is, even if it's not the problem you thought you had. So you want someone who will build you a sequenced plan before they start executing. And you want someone that's willing to push back if your stated goal isn't actually achievable yet with the resources you have. So if you have $5,000 to solve a $50,000 problem, the agency needs to tell you that. And that's going to be the difference between an agency that's going to do work that you tell them to do versus an agency that's going to be there to get you an outcome. So let me pull it all together. Marketing fails, websites fail, campaigns fail, entire engagements fail. And it's not often because the tactics are wrong, but because nobody did the upfront diagnostic work to understand what the freaking tactics were in the first place. The way you fix that is by doing the discovery work up front. It's how you figure out what's actually broken, what problems are going to matter the most, what order you need to solve them in. It's not glamorous. It doesn't feel like doing marketing or doing work, but it's the single thing that separates engagements and campaigns that work from the ones that don't. At Mealtown Digital, we build this into pretty much everything major we take on, whether it's a larger website, an SEO campaign, paid ads, growth marketing, whatever it is, we have to understand the problem before we start trying to solve them. Because without understanding the problems, we may literally be building something that's really well done, but goes in the completely wrong direction, and we end up with a failure. If you've ever been in a position where you've spent money on marketing and you have no idea what you got out of it, that experience has a name. It's called starting without a diagnostic, and it's something that is very, very easily fixable. If this has resonated with you, if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I've been in that boat, I want to invite you to have a conversation with us. Go to mealtowndigital.com. You can reach out to Teresa and our team from there. We'll set up a call and we're going to just ask you a bunch of questions because that's how we figure out whether we can actually help you and what that help really should look like. We don't do hard pitches and trying to sell you on the phone. We're not going to try to really understand the depth of your business. What we're looking for is, do you have a problem that we can solve? And if we can solve it, then we'll tell you exactly what we think we need to do in order to actually solve that problem. That's how we work. So if you made it to the end of this video, I'm guessing that's the kind of agency you might have been looking for. And if it is, please come talk to us at mealtowndigital.com. Thanks.